Find and Use Your Inner Power by Emmet, 1922. You can find the links to the previous videos in this playlist in the description box, as well as the full text in PDF and some other Emmet videos. Number 16. Studying the Bible. As a general rule, it is not well to work through the Bible steadily from end to end, but rather to select any portion as you feel led at the time. Whichever section interests you the most at the moment is usually likely to be the best for you at that time. Read the Bible in the light of the spiritual interpretation, using the principal keys and the symbols, noting the meanings of proper names and so forth as you come across them. The Bible will usually give you a special message for yourself, fitting your need at the moment. In order to get this, you should claim frequently, quote, "Divine intelligence is inspiring me," end quote, while you are reading the Bible. Do not go to the Bible to get confirmation for your own ideas, but rather to be taught something new. Quote, "Speak, Lord, for thy servant heareth," end quote. Number 17. Symptoms and Causes. If you have made many efforts, as you probably have, to set things right without any real success, the reason is to be found here. You have been tampering with symptoms and leaving your mind, the real cause of the trouble, untouched. You have been wrestling with circumstances, with people, and with things, and leaving your mind unchanged. It is just that mind of yours that is causing all the trouble, all the time, and will continue to do so as long as it remains in its present state. You have been struggling to transform yourself by renewing your conditions, where the law is that we are transformed by the renewing of our minds. If you want perfect health, if you want abundant prosperity, happiness, a good home, congenial friends, beauty, joy, and thrilling interest in your life, you can have them if you really want them. But you must want them enough to take the trouble to find out the only way to get them. You must want them enough to take the trouble to learn how to think, since thought is the only cause. Number 18. The cup and the lip. An experience that comes to many people may be described as follows. In business life or in their personal affairs, they frequently find themselves starting some desirable project and carrying it on without much difficulty up to the threshold of completion, whereupon, for some unknown reason, it seems to jam tightly. The last step or the last two steps just cannot be taken. Seemingly everything is ready to ensure success, and then at the 11th hour, the door closes. This experience occurs not once, but time after time, in one project after another. An important sale is all but completed, all parties concerned seem to be satisfied, but when the moment for signing the contract comes, the sale falls through. Or an important position is all but secured, satisfactory interviews take place, and then, at the very last moment, someone else is appointed. Or an important meeting is arranged with a great deal of pains between two people, and at the very last minute, the most unexpected happening prevents their meeting, and so on and so forth. These I call, quote, cup and lip, end quote, cases, since they illustrate so well the old proverb, quote, "There's many a slip twixt the cup and the lip," end quote. Such a run of misfortune can be broken by realizing, quote, "I belong to God," or "I belong to good. My work is good work, for good works through me. Good work cannot be hindered nor delayed." Of course, good always finishes successfully whatever it begins. Good work must go through to completion. My work is the good work. so it reaches full fruition. I thank the good for this. 19. How to meditate easily. Truth students are constantly urged to practice meditation on divine things, and, indeed, there is no more powerful form of prayer. It is the practice of the presence of the good in its most effective form, and is the quickest way out of sin, sickness, and inharmony. But unfortunately, many people have a fixed idea that they cannot meditate. Quote, I am not spiritual enough, they say, or, quote, I have had no mental training along that line. And so they cut themselves off from the quickest form of spiritual growth. Now the fact is that everyone can and does meditate. Even the most seemingly material people constantly meditate, only they do not meditate on divine things. Thousands of men meditate deeply on the subject of baseball during the baseball season without the least realizing that they're doing so. What usually happens is something like this. John Smith gets up in the morning and immediately picks up all the problems of life where he left them before going to sleep. He goes down to breakfast and engages in conversation about family matters, domestic problems, and so forth. On the railroad platform, he buys a paper, reads the headings on the front page, and becomes involved in national and now foreign politics, or even the latest crimes. Then the train comes in, and having selected a seat, he turns over to the baseball page. Here he reads steadily for 10 or 15 minutes, and now a change takes place. Gradually, as he reads about the ball games and becomes absorbed in what he's reading, all other subjects fade out of his mind. Home troubles, business troubles, politics, crime, all are forgotten. Presently he lays down the paper, and he becomes lost in the contemplation of his subject. He thinks about prominent players. He criticizes the management of his own favorite team, and possibly he thinks of certain changes that he would like to see made in the rules of the game, and much more along that same line. The next thing he knows, 30 or 40 minutes have passed, and he has arrived at his destination. Now here is an excellent example of a first-class meditation, except that it has been about baseball instead about divine things. This man read on his subject for 10 or 15 minutes, and thus got away from the general stream of thought. Having done this, he proceeded to think through and about his subject until he became absorbed in it. His technique was perfect. Now, if you will imitate him, except for that you will read a spiritual book for 10 or 15 minutes, and then think about the good, taking perhaps the 7 main aspects of God, think about your spiritual self. Think about the truth of being in any shape or any form. You will have made a wonderful meditation too, and if you do this, you cannot fail at remarkable results. 20. Sentiment. Sentiment slays happiness and failure. It is more deadly than poisonous gas, more cruel than the Inquisition, and more subtle than self-love. Sentiment really means pretending. It means making believe that an emotion that is really dead is still alive. It means pretending that something is fine or joyous or worthwhile, when in fact it is none of these things. And thus it means it is a waste of time, a waste of the soul substance that is lavished upon a lie. Worst of all, sentiment shuts us off from the realization of good in the present moment. Sentiment usually pretends that some happiness is just beyond recall, or else it persuades us to worship in an unreal abstraction of some kind on the ground that actually conditions are not worth caring about. Live in the present and let the dead past bury its dead. No good thing that ever existed is out of reach when you understand the spiritual nature of being. See to it that today and tomorrow are filled with beauty, joy, and this you can do through treatment or meditation. Remember that people never sentimentalize over the present good. They enjoy it, and therefore glorify the good. When they sentimentalize, it is always for something supposedly out of reach. No good experience is out of your reach, because the good is within you. 21. Bear hugs the kettle. I once read an anecdote of the far west that carries a wonderful metaphysical lesson. It appears that a party of hunters, being called away by their camp by a sudden alarm, left the camp fire unattended, and a kettle of water was boiling on it. Presently an old bear crept out of the woods, attracted by the fire, and seeing the kettle with its lid dancing about on the top, he promptly seized it, and naturally it burnt and scalded him badly, but instead of dropping it instantly, he proceeded to hug it tightly, this being the only idea of defense. And of course, the tighter that he hugged it, the more that it burnt him, and of course the more that it burnt him, the tighter that he hugged it, and so on in a very vicious cycle to the undoing of the bear. This illustrates perfectly the way in which many people amplify their difficulties. They hug them to their bosoms by constantly rehearsing them to themselves and to others, and by continually dwelling upon them in every possible manner, instead of dropping them at once and for all, so that the wound would have a chance to heal. Whenever you catch yourself thinking about your grievances, say to yourself sternly, "Bear hugs the kettle," and think about the good instead. You'll be surprised how quickly some long-standing wounds will disappear under this healing process. 22. Thought is destiny. You think, and your thoughts materialize as experience, and thus it is, all unknown to yourself as a rule, that you are actually weaving the pattern of your own destiny, here and now, by the way in which you allow yourself to think day by day and all day long. It is altogether in your own hands. Nobody but yourself can keep you down. Nobody else can involve you in difficulty or in limitation. Neither parents, nor wives, husbands, employers, neighbors, poverty, ignorance, nor any power whatsoever can keep you out of your own when once you have learned how to think. The science of living is the science of thought. 23. Don't be a tragedy queen or a drama queen. When things go seriously wrong, there's a strong temptation to cast oneself for a tragic role, to feel deeply injured and even embittered. And the result of this, however, is only to make it more difficult to get things right again. Indeed, it may be quite impossible to demonstrate at all so as long as this kind of an attitude lasts. Self-pity, by making us feel sorry for ourselves, seems to provide an escape from our responsibility, but it is a fatal drug nevertheless. It confuses the feelings, blinds the reason, and puts us at mercy of the outer conditions. In the old-fashioned dramas, a favorite role was the tragedy queen. It was traditional for her to stalk about the stage in heavy black with an intolerable air of injured innocence. She never made any attempt to put things right, and she invariably came to a sad end. Don't be a tragedy drama queen, whether you are a man or a woman, for it is not a question of gender, but of mental outlook. No matter what happens, refuse to take it tragically. Absolutely repudiate a crown of martyrdom. If you cannot laugh at yourself which is the best medicine of all, at least try to handle the difficulty in an objective way, as though it concerned someone else. To be tragic is to accept defeat. To refuse to be tragic is to affirm victory. Know that you can be victorious and insist upon victory. Realize the good in me is stronger than anything I have to meet. 24. Fundamental truth. The principal revelation of the Jesus Christ teaching is the omnipresence and availability of the good, and the belief that because of the good, it not only transcends the universe, but is everywhere immanent in it, and that the good indwells in it. It must in reality reflect the good's perfection. It is prayer that opens the door of the soul so that the divine power may work its will to harmony and peace. This religion teaches that physical ailments are really just maladies of the soul outpictured on the body, and that with the healing of the soul accomplished, the healing of the body must also follow. The soul is vivified by drawing closer to the good through prayer and meditation, and by changing one's outer conduct to bring it in more completely in harmony with the law of the good. It teaches the efficacy of scientific prayer to reshape one's whole life for health, harmony, and spiritual development. By scientific prayer, we mean the practice of the presence of the good. 25. Register joy and hold it. If you really believe in the existence of a divine good, then you should be happy and cheerful, even if conditions for the time being are difficult or even repugnant. You should understand that such things can only be a temporary picture. God has all power, and God is the good. So life must be good too. Once you know this, it can only be a matter of time before you will demonstrate both in health and happiness. Meet the world with a smile. You owe this to the good, to fellow man, and above all, to yourself. If you go about with a face like an east wind, what can you possibly expect to attract from the world? And when I say smile, of course, I mean a real smile, not an artificial one. For an artificial smile is the saddest sight on earth. We all know people who carry a fixed, frozen, mirthless, almost professional smile. Really, however, that is not a smile at all. It's just a permanent wave on the face. So smile, even if it takes a little effort at first, and keep it up until it becomes spontaneous, as it will. Register joy and hold it. To be continued in the next video in this playlist. Please remember to like, comment, share. Thank you for watching, and until the next time, remember, love yourselves and love each other unconditionally.